Life doesn't break you, it tests you, it pushes you. It demands to know, how strong are you really? When betrayal cuts deep, when failure crushes your spirit, when everything you've built seems to crumble, that's when life whispers, show me what you're made of. Most people fall apart. They drown in anger, fear, or regret. They beg for life to get easier, softer, and kinder. But that's a mistake, because life doesn't reward those who hide. It rewards those who rise. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius faced wars, plagues, and betrayal, yet he stood firm. Epictetus endured slavery and torture, but still found freedom in his mind. Today, I'm going to show you how to train your mind to become unshakable. Using powerful Stoic principles, you'll learn how to face pain head-on, embrace discomfort, and turn suffering into strength. This isn't about surviving, it's about thriving. The moment you understand that pain isn't your enemy, but your greatest teacher, your entire life will change. If you've ever felt like the world was against you, if you've faced loss, failure, or heartbreak, you're not alone. But what separates the weak from the strong is one thing: mindset. And by the end of this video, you won't just understand that, you'll live it. So stay with me, because the lesson you're about to learn could change your life forever. 1. Control what you can. Let go of the rest. You can't control everything, but you can control yourself. And that's where your true power lies. Most people waste their lives trying to fight battles they were never meant to win. They cling to things they have no power over, chasing approval, fearing rejection, drowning in regret over the past, or being paralyzed by anxiety about the future. In doing so, they hand over control of their minds. They become prisoners, not to their circumstances, but to their own thoughts. It's exhausting. Fighting to control things you can't change feels like running on a treadmill, burning energy but going nowhere. But here's the truth. No amount of anger, fear, or frustration will change what's already happened. The more you resist reality, the more power you lose. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that peace doesn't come from controlling the world. It comes from controlling how you respond to it. Epictetus, a man who was once born a slave yet became one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." That's a hard truth to accept. But once you do, life becomes clearer. I remember a friend, David, who spent years chained to something he couldn't control: his father's absence. His dad walked out when David was only 11, leaving him to grow up in a home that never quite felt whole. Every holiday, every birthday, every achievement was overshadowed by that empty chair at the table. As David got older, that absence turned into anger. He blamed his father for everything: his failed relationships, his insecurities, his feelings of unworthiness. Every success felt hollow. Every setback felt like confirmation that he wasn't good enough. I once asked him, "Why are you so angry?" His answer hit hard: "Because he left." But that wasn't the real reason. The truth? He wasn't angry because his father left. He was angry because he kept replaying that memory, reliving the pain as if clinging to it would somehow change it. He had handed his mind over to something he couldn't control, and it was breaking him. For years he thought if he held on to that anger tightly enough, maybe it would somehow make sense of the hurt. But anger doesn't fix the past. It traps you in it. The turning point came years later when David hit rock bottom. His marriage fell apart, his career crumbled, and in the silence that followed, he realized something powerful. His father's absence didn't define him. His response to it did. That's when everything changed. David stopped blaming the past and started focusing on what he could control: his thoughts, his actions, and his decisions. He poured himself into his work, rebuilt his life with purpose, and made peace with the truth that some things are beyond our power. His father never came back. But David found peace because he learned to control what truly mattered: himself. If you're still holding on to something you can't change, let it go. Not because what happened doesn't matter, but because your mind matters more. You can't control whether someone betrayed you, but you can control whether you let that betrayal harden your heart. You can't control whether someone lied about you, but you can control how you carry yourself when the truth comes out. You can't control who leaves you, but you can control whether their absence breaks you or makes you stronger. Most people waste years trying to rewrite what's already written. They sit in the ashes of their mistakes, endlessly replaying what they should have said or done differently. They torture themselves over things they cannot change. Conversations they can't relive, moments they can't undo, words they can't unsay. But here's the truth. Your mind wasn't built to live in the past. It wasn't made to carry every regret or to hold on to every grudge. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who faced wars, plagues, and betrayal, put it simply: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That's what makes the strongest minds unshakable. They don't waste energy trying to control what's beyond their grasp. Instead, they channel everything into mastering themselves. They know that strength isn't about winning every battle. It's about knowing which battles are worth fighting. Imagine being trapped in traffic. The car ahead isn't moving. You check your watch, you tap the steering wheel, and your frustration builds. But no matter how much you curse, honk, or pound the dashboard, the traffic won't change. Most people let frustration consume them. But a Stoic knows better. They know they can't control the traffic, but they can control how they respond. They can listen to a podcast, they can enjoy the quiet, they can use the moment to reflect. This is the power of mental control. When you focus only on what's in your hands, your thoughts, your actions, your choices, life becomes simpler, clearer, stronger. Ask yourself this: what pain are you still gripping tightly? What regret, what failure, what bitterness are you holding on to? Even though you know it's out of your control. If you're still carrying it, understand this: it's not the past that's hurting you anymore. It's your refusal to let go. Stop gripping what you can't control. Stop wasting your strength on battles that can't be won. Instead, pour that energy into what you can control. Your next move, your next breath, your next choice. Because the moment you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you become unstoppable. 2. Negative visualization. Preparing for the worst hope is not a strategy. Wishing for things to stay calm, safe, or predictable won't protect you when life turns against you. Most people build their lives on fragile ground. They avoid thinking about what could go wrong because it feels easier. But that's exactly what leaves them unprepared when disaster strikes. They believe that if they ignore their fears long enough, those fears will never become real. But ignoring risk doesn't eliminate it. It only makes you vulnerable. The Stoics understood this well. They knew that to build mental resilience, you must face your worst fears, not when they arrive, but before they ever show up at your door. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, called this practice negative visualization, the act of imagining the worst possible outcome so that if it happens, you're ready for it, not broken by it. Most people resist this idea because they confuse preparation with pessimism. But negative visualization isn't about expecting the worst. It's about ensuring you can handle it if it comes. Imagine two soldiers going to war. One believes nothing bad will happen. He assumes the enemy will retreat, that the battlefield will be calm, and that victory will come easily. He enters the field relaxed, careless, and unprepared. The second soldier expects the worst, not out of fear, but out of readiness. He imagines what might go wrong: an ambush, an injury, a loss of supplies. So he trains harder, strengthens his mind, and rehearses his response to chaos. When the battle starts, which soldier stands a better chance? The same applies to life. When you mentally prepare for hardship, when you accept that pain, failure, and loss are all possible, you stop fearing them. You become calm, focused, and steady when others fall apart. Negative visualization isn't about living in anxiety. It's about mastering your mind so that fear no longer controls you. Picture this. You're about to give a presentation at work. Your mind is racing. What if I forget my words? What if my slides fail? What if they judge me? Instead of drowning in those thoughts, you prepare for them. You imagine the microphone cutting out and practice speaking louder. You imagine your mind going blank and write down key points as reminders. Imagine a tough question from your boss and prepare your response. When you step into that room, you don't panic, because you've already faced every possible failure in your mind. And that's what gives you control. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who faced endless conflict and uncertainty, lived by this principle. He wrote, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly." That's not a morbid thought. It's powerful. When you imagine losing everything, your job, your home, your health, something remarkable happens. You stop taking things for granted. You stop feeling entitled to comfort or security. Instead, you develop gratitude because you understand how easily things can be taken away. That's the hidden power of negative visualization. It doesn't just prepare you for the worst, it helps you appreciate the best. A single mother who imagines losing her job doesn't do it to scare herself. She does it to prepare. She builds savings, learns new skills, and creates backup plans. So if that day ever comes, she's ready. Fear doesn't paralyze her, it strengthens her. An entrepreneur who visualizes his company failing doesn't do it out of negativity. He does it to build resilience. He prepares alternative strategies, diversifies his investments, and strengthens his team. When obstacles come, and they always do, he doesn't break, he adapts. Most people live in denial. They tell themselves, it won't happen to me. But the Stoics knew better. They knew that loss, failure, and hardship visit everyone eventually. And the only difference between those who crumble and those who rise is preparation. When you visualize your worst fear, not once but often, something powerful shifts inside you. Fear loses its grip. Your mind stops whispering, what if I lose everything? Because you've already faced that question in your head. And when you've mentally prepared for the worst, reality loses its power to shock you. So take a moment, ask yourself, what's the one thing you're most afraid of losing? What's the situation you secretly hope never happens? Now imagine it. Fully. Imagine the heartbreak, the loss, the fear. Don't rush through it. Let yourself feel it. Then ask yourself this. What would I do if this happened tomorrow? The answer to that question is your power. It's your blueprint for control in a world that's unpredictable. If you practice this regularly, you won't just survive hardship. You'll face it with clarity and strength while others panic. The mind that prepares for the storm stands stronger when the storm arrives. The mind that expects pain doesn't flinch when it comes. Most people build their lives hoping things will stay easy. But you will build your mind strong enough to face whatever life throws at you. Because the truth is, you can't stop the storm, but you can choose how you stand in it. 3. Voluntary hardship, strengthening the mind with discomfort. Comfort is a slow poison. It whispers lies, telling you that ease is better than effort, that safety is better than struggle, and that avoiding pain will somehow bring peace. But comfort doesn't make you stronger, it makes you fragile. The mind that avoids discomfort is a mind that panics when life gets hard. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that to build resilience, you must seek discomfort on purpose. Marcus Aurelius, one of Rome's greatest emperors, practiced this every day. Despite his power, wealth, and status, he slept on the floor instead of his royal bed. He denied himself luxuries even though they were within reach. He knew that hardship, when chosen willingly, trains the mind to stay calm when hardship arrives uninvited. Seneca did the same. He would dress in rags and eat simple food, not because he had to, but because he knew the mind grows stronger when it learns to endure discomfort. This practice is called voluntary hardship, and it's one of the most powerful mental tools you can develop. I knew someone who understood this better than most. His name was Michael. For years, Michael had everything: a thriving business, a beautiful home, and a sense of security he believed was unshakable. But life doesn't always go as planned. One day, the market crashed. His company went under. His savings were wiped out. He lost everything he had worked for. But here's what's remarkable. He didn't fall apart. He didn't panic. I remember asking him how he stayed so calm when everything seemed to collapse. His answer was simple: because I prepared for this. Years before things fell apart, Michael had started practicing voluntary hardship. Once a month, he would force himself to live with less. He'd skip meals to remind himself that hunger wouldn't kill him. He'd turn off his heater in the middle of winter to remind himself that cold couldn't break him. He'd leave his wallet at home and walk for miles to remind himself that even without convenience, he could still move forward. He didn't do this out of paranoia. He did it to train his mind to be unshakable. So when the worst happened, he didn't collapse. He knew discomfort. He had practiced it. He had learned through choice that hardship wasn't something to fear. It was something to master. Most people believe strength comes from avoiding pain, but that's a mistake. Strength comes from facing pain, from willingly stepping into discomfort and learning that it won't destroy you. Wake up earlier than you want to. Exercise when your body begs for rest. Walk in the rain without an umbrella. Take cold showers even when you hate them. Push your mind to endure small discomforts now so that when life hits you hard, you won't shatter. You'll stand firm. Voluntary hardship doesn't just build mental strength, it makes you grateful. When you choose to live without something you take for granted, you appreciate it more. Skip your morning coffee for a week, and suddenly that first cup tastes richer. Sleep on the floor for a night, and suddenly your bed feels like a gift. Epictetus knew this well. Despite spending years as a slave, he believed that true freedom wasn't about wealth or status. It was about mastering the mind. He once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Most people spend their lives chasing comfort, yet they still feel anxious, restless, and unsatisfied. Why? Because comfort breeds dependence. When you rely on comfort, you fear losing it. But when you train your mind to endure discomfort, you become free. You stop fearing cold because you've faced it. You stop fearing hunger because you've endured it. You stop fearing loss because you've already prepared your mind to stand strong without what you once believed you couldn't live without. If you want to train your mind to be unshakable, don't wait for life to test you. Step into discomfort now, willingly. Start small. Skip a meal when you don't have to. Choose to take the stairs instead of the elevator. Spend a weekend without your phone. Walk home instead of driving. Sleep without a pillow. These acts may seem small, but that's the point. Each time you choose discomfort, you teach your mind that it's stronger than your impulses. Each time you resist the easy path, you build resilience. Each time you embrace hardship, you become harder to break. The mind that is never tested becomes weak. But the mind that chooses discomfort, the mind that trains for hardship before hardship arrives, becomes powerful. When you've walked in the rain, when you've faced hunger, when you've learned to thrive without comfort, you become fearless. Because you know that no matter what life throws at you, you won't break. So ask yourself, what's one comfort you depend on too much? What's one thing you avoid because it feels inconvenient or hard? Start there. Choose discomfort, not because it's pleasant, but because it's powerful. Because the truth is, life will test you. Hardship will come. The only question is, will you be ready for it? 4. Emotional detachment. Mastering control over emotions. Emotions are powerful, but only if you control them. When your emotions control you, they make you weak. Anger clouds your judgment. Fear stops you from taking action. Sadness drains your energy. The mind that reacts without control becomes unpredictable, unstable, and easily manipulated. That's why the Stoics trained themselves to master emotional detachment. They didn't suppress their emotions, they observed them. They understood that emotions themselves aren't the enemy. It's how you respond to them that defines your strength. Epictetus once said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Nothing can make you angry unless you allow it. No one can break you emotionally unless you give them that power." But emotional detachment isn't about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about staying in control. No matter what life throws at you. Imagine standing in front of someone shouting insults at you. Most people would react instantly, firing back with words of their own. But what happens when you refuse to respond? What happens when you stay calm when you give them nothing? Their anger loses power. Their words fade into nothing. Because the moment you refuse to react, you take control. Emotional detachment isn't about ignoring your feelings. It's about training your mind to pause before you act. When anger rises, you notice it, but you don't let it decide your response. When sadness hits, you acknowledge it, but you don't sink into self-pity. The power lies in that moment of pause, the space between what happens and how you respond. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." Calmness isn't weakness, it's power. A calm mind is sharp, steady, and unshaken. When you refuse to be swept away by emotions, you become stronger than anything that tries to break you. The Stoics knew that was a dangerous way to live. When your emotions run wild, you become easy to manipulate. People will provoke you, push your buttons, and test your limits. Not always out of malice, but because they know they can. Emotional detachment gives you the upper hand. When you stay calm, you become unpredictable. When you refuse to react, you become untouchable. But this kind of control doesn't come naturally. It must be trained. Start by observing your emotions in the third person. When frustration rises, step back and ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Ask yourself, is this emotion based on facts or assumptions? Am I reacting to what's happening or to what I fear might happen? Will this feeling still matter in a week, a month, or a year? Most of the time, the answer is no. The things that upset you in the moment often mean nothing in the long run. Emotional detachment isn't about becoming numb. It's about choosing what deserves your energy. When someone insults you, you can waste hours replaying their words in your mind, or you can let it go. When someone betrays you, you can carry bitterness for years, or you can release it and move forward. Emotions may knock at your door, but you get to decide whether you let them in. Seneca believed that anger was the most destructive emotion. He warned that uncontrolled rage burns bridges, shatters relationships, and poisons the mind. He wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay. Pause before you react. Step back before you speak. Observe before you engage. The stronger your pause, the stronger your control." But what about sadness, the feeling that lingers long after the pain? The Stoics understood that sadness has power, but only if you let it consume you. They believed that grief, like any emotion, should be felt, but not worshipped. When you lose something precious, a loved one, a relationship, or a dream, sadness is natural. But letting that sadness define you is a choice. Instead of drowning in loss, they believed in transforming it, turning heartbreak into wisdom, turning disappointment into determination. Emotional detachment gives you that power. It allows you to feel without being overwhelmed. It teaches you that emotions are like passing storms, intense but temporary. You are not your anger. You are not your sadness. You are not your fear. You are the one who observes them. And the one who observes is always stronger than what is observed. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start caring about the right things. You stop wasting energy on meaningless arguments. You stop feeding insecurities by chasing approval. You stop giving your power away to people who don't deserve it. The more you detach, the stronger you become. Because when your emotions no longer control you, no one else can either. 5. Dark psychology. Using pain as a weapon. Pain is a powerful force. It has the power to destroy you or forge you into something stronger. Most people treat pain like an enemy. They resist it, avoid it, and when it arrives, they crumble under its weight. But the strongest minds don't run from pain. They walk straight into it. They know something most people don't. Pain is not your enemy. It's your greatest weapon. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that pain, when faced correctly, sharpens you. It forces you to grow. It reveals strengths you never knew you had. Epictetus, who was once enslaved and physically abused, refused to see himself as a victim. He believed that pain wasn't just something to endure, it was something to use. He wrote, "Difficulties show a person's true character. So when trouble comes, remember that you are being tested. The test is not meant to break you, but to prove what you are capable of." Pain isn't there to defeat you. It's there to reveal you. I once knew a man named Daniel who learned this well. Daniel was a talented athlete, strong, confident, and disciplined. Sports had always been his way of life, the thing that defined him. But during one match, a sudden injury changed everything. He tore a ligament in his knee, a devastating blow that crushed his hopes of competing professionally. For weeks, he sank into despair. The pain wasn't just physical, it was mental. He felt lost, powerless, and broken. The life he had spent years building was gone in an instant. But one evening, something shifted. Lying in bed, leg wrapped in bandages, Daniel realized something powerful. Pain wasn't his enemy, it was his teacher. Instead of drowning in frustration, he chose to study it. He spent hours learning about the injury, how muscles heal, how the body rebuilds itself. He began doing physical therapy not just with discipline, but with obsession. He treated his recovery like a mission, pushing his body harder than his trainers ever had. The pain didn't disappear, but it no longer controlled him. He used it. Every sharp ache became a reminder to keep pushing. Every setback became fuel to train harder. Months later, Daniel returned to the sport, not as the athlete he once was, but as something more. Stronger, smarter, tougher. He never competed professionally again, but he didn't need to, because the mental strength he built through pain gave him something far more powerful than medals. It gave him resilience. Most people avoid pain, but the truth is, avoiding pain only makes you weaker. When you run from pain, you teach your mind that discomfort is something to fear, and that fear makes you fragile. But when you face pain, when you step into it willingly, you discover something remarkable. You're stronger than you think. The Stoics believed that pain reveals two things: your weaknesses and your potential. It shows you where you're fragile, but it also shows you where you're capable of growth. That's why the strongest minds don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" They ask, "How can I use this?" Did you lose your job? Use the pain to sharpen your skills and build something better. Betrayed by someone you trusted? Use the pain to learn who's truly loyal and who isn't. Heartbroken? Use the pain to reflect, rebuild, and return stronger than before. Every setback carries a hidden lesson, but you won't find it if you run from the discomfort. Seneca believed that pain was like fire, dangerous if left uncontrolled, but powerful when mastered. He wrote, "Fire feeds on obstacles. The more you throw at it, the stronger it grows." Pain works the same way. If you resist it, it will burn you. But if you embrace it, it will forge you. This is how great minds turn suffering into strength. They don't waste time wishing things were easier. They use the struggle to become stronger. But mastering pain isn't just about enduring it, it's about transforming it. Instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "What can this teach me?" Instead of avoiding pain, study it. Find the weak points it's exposing. See the gaps in your resilience. Notice the fears it reveals and confront them. Because when you treat pain as a teacher instead of an enemy, you take away its power to break you. The next time life hits you hard, pause. Don't react. Don't complain. Ask yourself one simple question: how can I use this? Because the truth is, pain isn't your enemy, it's your weapon. The only question is whether you'll use it or let it use you. Amor, Fati, loving your fate. Pain is unavoidable. Loss is inevitable. Life will test you in ways you never expected, and you won't always have the power to stop it. But what if the key to strength isn't just enduring hardship, but embracing it? The Stoics believed in a powerful idea called Amor, Fati, the love of fate. Not just accepting what happens, but loving it. Embracing every setback, every heartbreak, and every failure is a necessary part of your journey. Most people resist this idea. They believe that peace comes from avoiding suffering. They see pain as an interruption, an accident, something that shouldn't have happened. But this way of thinking creates weakness. Because the more you resist reality, the harder life becomes. Seneca once wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." That's Amor, Fati, turning every hardship into fuel. It's easy to embrace life when things are going well, when your career thrives, your relationships are strong, and your plans unfold perfectly. But when disaster strikes, when you lose something precious, when betrayal breaks your trust, when your world turns upside down, that's when Amor, Fati becomes essential. Most people waste their strength asking, "Why me?" But the Stoic asks, "How can I use this?" Losing a job may feel like a failure, but it may be the push you need to start the business you've been putting off. Being rejected may feel humiliating, but it may be what forces you to discover your true worth. Even tragedy, the deepest kind, can become a source of strength when you face it with courage. Amor, Fati isn't about pretending pain doesn't hurt. It's about choosing to believe that even your worst moments have value. It's about understanding that the things you didn't want, the loss, the betrayal, the failure, may be exactly what you need to grow stronger. Imagine two people who lose their homes in a fire. One falls into despair, blaming life, cursing fate, and giving up hope. The other person grieves, but then begins to rebuild. They embrace the destruction as a chance to start over, to create something stronger, something better. Both suffered the same loss, but one allowed the fire to consume them, while the other used the fire to forge something greater. The difference wasn't what happened, it was how they responded. Marcus Aurelius believed that no event is inherently good or bad. It's your interpretation that defines its meaning. He wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." That's the mindset of Amor Fati. The obstacle isn't the end of the road, it is the road. The setback you fear may be the very thing that shapes you into someone wiser, stronger, and more resilient. But embracing fate doesn't mean surrendering. It doesn't mean giving up and allowing life to push you around. Amor Fati is the exact opposite. It's the mindset that says, whatever comes, I will use it. When something goes wrong, you don't ask for an easier path. You ask yourself, how can I turn this into strength? That's what makes Amor Fati so powerful. It shifts your focus from resistance to acceptance, and from acceptance to action. The moment you stop fighting what happened, you free yourself to focus on what happens next. Seneca believed that most suffering comes not from pain itself, but from our refusal to accept it. He wrote, "A man who accepts his fate stands firm and unshaken." When you embrace Amor Fati, you become like a tree in the wind. The storm may bend you, but you won't break. The fire may scorch you, but you won't burn out. Life may take things from you, but it can't take your ability to respond with strength, courage, and wisdom. The more you embrace what you cannot change, the more power you gain over what you can change. You can't stop the storm, but you can decide how you face it. You can't control who stays or who leaves, but you can choose to keep moving forward. You can't erase the pain of your past, but you can refuse to let it define you. Embracing your fate doesn't mean giving up. It means choosing to rise from whatever life throws your way. Because when you learn to love your fate, nothing can break you. Not pain, not failure, not even tragedy. You become like fire. The more life throws at you, the brighter you burn. 7. Transforming pain into power. Pain will either break you or forge you into something greater. Most people crumble under suffering. They drown in regret, self-pity, or bitterness. But there's another way, a way to turn pain into power, to make it the very force that drives you forward. The Stoics believed that pain isn't just something to survive, it's something to use. They knew that suffering carries a hidden strength, if you know how to extract it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Pain isn't an interruption, it's the path itself. But you can only walk that path if you face the discomfort head-on. I knew someone who embodied this truth. Her name was Claire. For most of her life, Claire had been a fighter, ambitious, driven, and focused. But when her marriage ended unexpectedly, everything unraveled. She was blindsided. The life she had spent years building was gone in an instant. At first, the pain consumed her. She isolated herself, drowning in memories and questions that had no answers. For months, she replayed the past, wondering what went wrong, blaming herself for things she couldn't change. But eventually, something shifted. One morning, Claire stood in front of her bathroom mirror and faced herself. Really faced herself. She realized the pain wasn't going to disappear, but she had a choice: let it break her or use it. That day, she made a decision. She wrote down 3 words and taped them to her mirror. Turn it into fuel. She poured her energy into things she could control. She rebuilt her career, focusing on skills she had neglected for years. She started volunteering at a local shelter, something she'd once been too busy to consider. She leaned into her pain, not by running from it, but by forcing it to push her forward. Her suffering didn't vanish, but it changed shape. Instead of something that weighed her down, it became something that drove her. Months later, Claire told me, "The worst thing that happened to me turned out to be the best thing that happened to me." Most people see pain as the enemy, but pain is a powerful weapon when you learn to use it. The Stoics believe that every hardship carries a hidden gift, a chance to develop mental strength, patience, and resilience. But you only find that gift if you refuse to run. When life breaks you, stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "How can I use this?" If you're rejected, use it to sharpen your self-respect. If you're betrayed, use it to learn who's truly loyal. If you fail, use it to refine your strategy and build something better. Every scar is proof that you survived. Every heartbreak is a reminder that you're still standing. Pain is a sculptor, but you decide what it shapes you into. Epictetus understood this deeply. He once said, "We are not disturbed by events, but by the views we take of them." Pain itself doesn't break you. Your resistance to pain does. Most people make the mistake of letting pain control their story. They allow heartbreak to turn into bitterness. They let failure convince them they're worthless. They let grief pull them into endless regret. But when you take ownership of your pain, when you use it as fuel, you take back control. One of the most powerful ways to transform pain is through action. When you channel your suffering into purposeful movement, rebuilding your health, deepening your skills, reconnecting with others, the pain loses its grip. Seneca believed that grief, anger, and regret are like fires. Uncontrolled, they consume everything. But when guided with purpose, those same flames become the fire that forges your strength. He wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Pain sharpens you, but only if you stop fearing it. When life breaks you, don't waste your energy wishing things were easier. Use that energy to rise. The people who survive the worst storms are not the ones who beg for calm seas. They are the ones who learn to navigate the waves. So if you're carrying pain right now, if you feel trapped, exhausted, or broken, remember this. The pain you're feeling isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. It's your fuel. It's the force that will push you to become stronger than you ever thought possible. Let it burn away your weakness. Let it burn away your doubts. Let it burn away the version of you that believed comfort was the goal. Because when you use your pain, when you embrace it, harness it, and turn it into power, nothing can stop you. 8. Embrace the fire. Accepting the flames of life. Hardship doesn't ask for permission. It arrives unannounced, wrecking your plans, breaking your heart, and leaving you to pick up the pieces. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid that fire. But the Stoics believe there's a better way. Don't avoid it. Step into it. The strongest minds don't fear the flames. They become the fire. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything thrown into it." That's what it means to embrace the fire, to use every difficulty, every setback, and every heartbreak as fuel. Most people crumble when things go wrong. They see hardship as something that shouldn't have happened, as if life has somehow broken the rules. But there are no rules. Life doesn't promise fairness. It doesn't guarantee comfort. It doesn't matter how hard you worked, how kind you were, or how much you planned. The Stoics knew this. They knew that trying to fight reality only makes you weaker. You can't control the fire, but you can decide whether it consumes you or strengthens you. That's why embracing the fire is so powerful. It removes the illusion that life is supposed to be easy. It teaches you to expect hardship and to welcome it when it comes. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you ask, "How can I use this?" Instead of resisting the pain, you learn to lean into it. Because pain itself isn't the enemy. Your refusal to face it is. When you avoid discomfort, you hand over your strength. But when you face it willingly, you gain power over it. That's why the Stoics practiced discomfort before life forced it on them. They understood that resilience isn't built when life is easy. It's forged in the struggle. Seneca believed that hardship isn't just something you survive, it's something you should seek out. He wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. The mind that expects comfort becomes weak. The mind that expects hardship becomes unstoppable." But embracing the fire isn't just about preparing for future pain. It's about using the pain you're already carrying. The regret that haunts you, the failure that crushed you, the heartbreak you never recovered from, those are your greatest sources of strength if you know how to use them. When you stop wishing things had turned out differently, you free yourself to build something stronger. When you stop running from what hurt you, you discover you're no longer afraid of it. And when you accept that life will never be perfect, that it's messy, unpredictable, and often unfair, you stop wasting energy fighting reality. You start using that energy to adapt, to grow, and to rebuild. The Stoics believe that fire doesn't destroy, it refines. The question isn't whether life will break you, it's whether you'll let it shape you. Pain can turn you bitter, or it can turn you wise. Failure can make you quit, or it can make you sharper. Heartbreak can leave you empty, or it can open your eyes to what really matters. The difference isn't what happened, it's what you do with what happened. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of this often. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the heart of embracing the fire. It's the understanding that no matter what life takes from you, No matter what you lose, your power lies in what you do next. When life burns down what you've built, you build again. When betrayal crushes your trust, you choose to trust yourself instead. When grief knocks you down, you rise with deeper wisdom than before. Because the fire isn't there to destroy you, it's there to transform you. So stop waiting for life to be easy. Stop hoping things will get better before you take action. Instead, step into the fire. Face the hardship you've been avoiding. Because once you learn to welcome the flames, nothing can burn you. You won't run from discomfort, you'll walk into it. You won't flinch at rejection, you'll see it as redirection. You won't fear failure, you'll know it's the first step toward mastery. You will become like the fire itself, consuming everything life throws at you and turning it into strength. The world doesn't break those who embrace the fire, it's afraid of them. Because the person who refuses to run, the person who refuses to quit, is unstoppable. You don't just survive the fire, you become it. Life is unpredictable. Pain will come. Loss is inevitable. You can't control the storms that hit you, but you can decide how you face them. The Stoics knew this well. They didn't waste time hoping for easier days. Instead, they trained their minds to face hardship head-on. They practiced control over what they could change and learned to let go of what they couldn't. They prepared for the worst so that when it arrived, they stood firm. They embraced discomfort, mastering the strength that comes from struggle. And when pain knocked them down, they turned it into power, shaping themselves into something stronger. This is the path of mental resilience. It's not built in comfort, it's forged in adversity. But resilience isn't something you read about, it's something you practice. Start today. Wake up earlier than you want to. Do something uncomfortable on purpose. Face the thing you've been avoiding. When anger rises, pause. Don't react. When pain lingers, ask yourself how you can use it. And when hardship arrives, don't waste energy asking why. Instead, ask, how can this make me stronger? With each act of courage, you train your mind to become unshakable. You become like fire, feeding off everything life throws at you, growing brighter and stronger with every obstacle. If you've faced hardship before, if you've walked through pain and found strength on the other side, I invite you to share your story. Your experience could inspire someone else to rise stronger. Let's remind each other that no matter what happens, we have the power to turn struggle into strength and to become unbreakable.